Hello, and thank you again for joining this live, toll-free town hall meeting with your Congressman Randy Weber. Today, you'll have the opportunity to hear from Congressman Weber and other government officials regarding the latest updates on the coronavirus response. On the line, we have representatives from the Small Business Administration, the Galveston County Local Health Authority, and the Independent Bankers Association of Texas, ready to answer your questions. Before we begin, some of you have already done this, but a quick reminder. If you'd like to ask a question of Congressman Weber or any one of our guests, you can do so by pressing *3 on your telephone. Again, you'll press *3 on your telephone. You'll be placed into a queue and ask a question. We'll try to get to as many questions as we can in the time that we have. Again, press *3. With that, I'd like to welcome your Congressman, Randy Weber. Congressman?
Well, thank you, Jason and friends, and I want to say thanks to everybody who's joining our call tonight. And I'll echo what Jason has already said as a reminder. If you would like to ask a question, please press *3 to be entered into the queue. I do want to take this time also to encourage you, if you haven't already, to subscribe to our e-newsletter at weber.house.gov for the latest updates on the coronavirus response and up-to-date resources. Now, having said that, let me say something that we all know. Friends, these are absolutely unprecedented times. What began as a public health crisis has now developed into an absolute economic disaster, with confirmed cases of coronavirus all across our great country. And here in our community, Galveston County, and all three of our counties really, still on the rise, stifling economic activity. Countless American workers are being furloughed or laid off. What you already know, large and small businesses alike are in danger of closing their doors permanently. Our Americans are suffering. As your elected representative in Congress, my goal is to provide you with every single possible resource available and to bring you all as much information on the ongoing response to this national crisis. Congress passed the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security, or the CARES Act, we call it. This legislation provides the necessary relief to assist families and bolster the economy. This bill offers direct assistance to families, to small businesses, and workers through recovery checks. Additionally, this legislation includes $350 billion with a B in federally guaranteed loans through the PPP, or the Paycheck Protection Program. For those small businesses, it allows 8 weeks of cash flow assistance to maintain their payrolls. It also grants the Treasury Department and the Federal Reserve the flexibility to provide support to industries harmed by government mandate. Additionally, it rushes much-needed resources to our frontline hospitals, to our tireless health professionals, and our first responders, while also expanding the use of telehealth, something we're good at here in Texas. As this legislation is rolled out, there are many of you that are going to have questions related to the bill, to the resources newly made available to you, to the response efforts, and what does that mean? What does that exactly mean for us as Texans? As Jason mentioned, tonight's town hall is intended to answer any questions you might have regarding the COVID-19 response efforts. And if we don't have the answers tonight, we'll certainly get them. But on the line tonight, we have two local health officials, Dr. Kaiser, Galveston County Local Health Authority. We have Sushil Kumar, Public Information Officer for the United States Small Business Administration, Office of Disaster Assistance. And we also have Christy Hester, Media Past President, Board of Directors, Independent Bankers Association of Texas. So we want to thank them all in advance for what they're doing and what they're going to help us with tonight to make sure you get the resources you need. To ensure you've all had ample opportunity to have your questions answered, I want each official, those three officials I just named, to take a moment to introduce themselves and describe their role in the response efforts. I want them to take 30 seconds to describe themselves. Dr. Kaiser, let's start with you.
Yeah, hi, I'm Philip Kaiser. I'm a infectious disease physician by training. I'm the local health authority for Galveston County, and my job is coordinating the public health response to the COVID epidemic in the county.
Thank you for that. And how about you, Mr. Kumar?
Thank you, Congressman. My name is Sushil Kumar, Public Information Officer for the U.S. Small Business Administration. My role tonight and ongoing is to create the awareness of all the capital access programs for small businesses to recover from this horrific COVID-19 economic disruption. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you. And you're up, Ms. Hester.
My name is Christy Hester. I work for the Independent Bankers Association of Texas, and our role is to help the lenders and bankers across the state understand this CARES Act and the portions of it that apply to the Payroll Protection Act, and do everything we can to make the process as smooth as it can be for the small businesses and the bankers.
Well, thank you for that. And I do want to say again that we appreciate all three of you being on board to answer questions. I will remind those who have called in, if you're not able to ask a question or share your comment tonight, please feel free to visit my website, weber.house.gov, and sign up for my e-newsletter for up-to-date information on the COVID-19 response. And you can also find me on Facebook and Twitter by simply searching TXRandy14. That's Texas TX Randy 14. Again, as we open the lines, as a reminder, if you want to ask a question, please hit star 3 on your telephone keypad to be placed in the queue. We look forward to your questions, and to that, Jason, I'm going to hand it back over to you.
Thank you, Congressman. We have quite a few folks on the line who have already been placed in the queue to ask a question. We're going to take our first caller, and that's Keith Martin from Lamarck, Texas. Keith, you on?
Yes, I am.
Go ahead, sir.
Yes. I have a small business, and we use heavily independent contractors. So when we were originally told that our small business would be able to go through the Payroll Protection Act. So we went through and we did the application, talked to our banker, had everything all set up, turned it in to our banker. He came back to us, told us that on Thursday night before the applications were accepted, the SBA made a change and decided that those businesses that used independent contractors would not be able to go through the Payroll Protection Act and would have to go a different direction. So we then now have applied through what we were told to do the economic injury disaster loan, and we got a number, but that's all we've heard from them. And I'm sure, like everybody else, small businesses, my people are hurting. They can't get through to get their unemployment because you can't get through the lines, and we can't pay them right now because we don't have any money coming in. We're at zero revenue. So that's my question is, what can we do?
Well, thank you for that question, Keith. And let me just say, I've tried to read as much, be on as many conference calls as I could. I've been on more conference calls in the last 2 weeks than, good grief, I think in my whole lifetime. And as I understand it, and I'm going to get Mr. Kumar to weigh in here in just a second, I was thinking that they had actually changed those rules and added subcontractors and 1099s. Mr. Kumar, what say you?
I concur with you, Congressman. As a matter of fact, I'm looking at the website as we speak. The fourth or the fifth box, sole proprietor, partnership, C Corp, S Corp, LLC, independent contractor, eligible self-employed individuals, and then it goes into 5 other categories, are eligible for the PPP program. Independent of that, economic injury disaster loan, sir, if you did apply with us with the new streamlined application, you also potentially could have asked for an advance of up to $10,000 to pay your folks. Radio button number 2, COVID-19relief.sba.gov, specifically addresses needs for the independent contractor.
Well, thank you for that, Mr. Kumar. And Keith, I don't know if you're still on the line, but
yes.
If you need to, you can call our office and get that website. But that was my understanding. There was a lot of rules being rolled out, and I will tell you this. as your elected member of the United States House of Representatives, we've watched the SBA, we've watched the Treasury Department, we've watched the White House, we've watched Congress actually get in gear and do something that we thought was miraculous in getting all this rolled out in such a short time. So, it is a little confusing at first, but I think you're going to find that subcontractors, I used to own an air conditioning business, I had some subcontractors, 1099 people, they're going to be eligible.
Okay. So I should go back to my bank because they were incorrect.
Well, they may have been going under the original rules, but there have been some updates and some changes. But yeah, I'd double check back to them. I think I would do what Mr. Kumar said: is go on the website, pull off that information there on the work that he gave you, and print it out. And just make sure, because I know a lot of the bankers our community bankers do such a fabulous job in our area. A lot of them are just inundated with calls and applications. So I think I'd approach it that way.
Congressman, do you mind if I?
Oh, yes, ma'am. Miss Christie, absolutely. Would you please weigh in?
Yes. So I believe Keith's question was he eligible because he pays 1099 contractors. So the way you answered the way the question was answered was, were those contractors eligible? And I think the answer to that question is yes. But I believe his question was, could he count the income he's paying to those independent contractors so that he's eligible for a PPP loan? And that is where there's some confusion. But if the independent contractor can apply, he cannot count those wages towards the payroll eligibility that he has.
And Mr. Kumar, are you still on the line with us?
I am, sir.
Is that your understanding as well? I think Christie's probably hit the nail on the head. If his question, of course, as a subcontractor, as a contractor myself, that was an expense, all those 1099s. And so I don't think you can apply those as income, or do I miscalculate that?
My understanding from the language that I've received and I've been reading through is that your legal entity is of secondary concern, whereas if you apply and take all of your payroll costs and include it for forgiveness, that's the ultimate asset test, if you will. So in other words, as a contractor, if you were to apply, you should have relief at the end of a certain time frame. That's the way I read it. I'll go back and confirm without getting into the weeds. Perhaps Christy and I and you could converse after the fact, and I'll get into the nitty-gritty of the details.
Sure, and if Mr. Morton wants to call our office, we can update him on that. Now, some of the reading I've done on some of the rules that have been put out, sole proprietors can apply through the PPP program, if I understand that. Now, how they count their income may be the question he has. But Ms. Hester, is that your understanding that sole proprietors can apply through the PPP program?
Yes. So the difference in so if Keith owns a company and he pays out 1099 to other subcontractors, what he pays out to those independent contractors, he is not eligible to claim. But if he, as the contractor, has income and expenses, and then he pays himself a salary, and he pays anyone in wages, commissions, or any of those eligible ways, that is eligible for a PPP loan. He just cannot double count the 1099 income that his subcontractors are eligible to count.
No, that's something that they would have to apply for themselves.
Right.
Yeah, and if he has, and even if he doesn't, if he's got as I understand reading through the rules, a profit and loss statement or a balance sheet, even if he doesn't have his latest tax return, he can still apply with a P&L and a balance sheet. Is that your understanding?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, that's what I thought I read earlier too. Okay, well, we thank you, Mr. Martin, for that. Jason, we're going to go back to you.
Okay, we have another caller on the line, and this is Mr. Chris Doyle from Texas City. Chris, you're on the line?
Yes, sir. Good afternoon, Congressman. I appreciate
welcome,
you.
Chris.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate you having this town hall call. It's important to all your constituents and certainly the bankers in the area. We've been very active in the PPP loan program at Texas First, and I have to hand it to you and the administration and Treasury and Federal Reserve for putting together a program as quick as you did. Now, it's not without glitches. We understand that, but it is a great program, and it is being highly sought after. We've already gone through over 200 approvals through the SBA, and totaling almost $70 million in PPP loans, and represents over 6,000 jobs that we're helping. So it really is a great program, something we're very proud to be a part of. And I want to thank you and everyone that was involved in that.
Well, thank you for saying that, Chris. We appreciate it, and we sure appreciate y'all's input as a good banking institution in our great state, and really, y'all are in Louisiana too. But
yes, sir.
You and your dad have been instrumental, as you know, been talking back and forth with y'all, and some things we're trying to update and upgrade and get, for example, better FDIC coverage on all the transactions.
Yes.
So we really appreciate your input.
Well, my question today is there's been some discussion about the appropriation for PPP. You know, the $349 billion was initially appropriated for the plan, and I believe I heard Treasury Secretary Mnuchin talking about adding possibly another $250 billion to that appropriation. And I just wanted to get your thoughts on that. Is that something that you've heard on Capitol Hill, and is it growing legs, and do you think that's possible?
Well, it's not something I heard on Capitol Hill. I heard it direct from Secretary Mnuchin himself.
Okay.
So I think it's entirely possible. As I said earlier, you've seen people getting gear because so much is at stake here. The time frame, of course, will remain to be seen. We want to make sure that any next appropriations that we roll out have to be done thoughtfully and not with any social engineering. You know, it mainly lends itself, pun intended, to businesses, to individuals, to workers, to employees, and to companies that we don't want to go out of business. So I think you're going to see it. We're hearing that talk. We're hearing about it being a voice vote, maybe if not tomorrow, first part of next week. So I think it's in the wings. I really do.
That's great. Thank you.
You bet.
I want to thank you for that question. And of course, if anyone has a question and you haven't had an opportunity to ask it or be in the queue, you can press *3 on your telephone keypad. Again, *3, you'll be placed into a queue to ask a question. We're going to go, Congressman, to our next caller, which is Laura Garcia, who is in Dickinson. Laura, go ahead.
Yes, hi, thank you. My question is, my husband, he has his own business. He's concerned self-employed. He only has 2 people working with him. It's in construction, like a repair service. He does 1099s for the 2 employees as well as he gets paid through 1099s. Can he still file for this personal protection loan?
Well, I'm going to say, Ms. Garcia, thank you for being on the call with us, and I hope you didn't get too much water there in Dickinson during Hurricane Harvey.
I did.
Well, yeah, I grew up in the area. I saw 4 feet of water at 517 and I-45 in the intersection.
That's right where I was.
Yeah, I've never seen that in my whole life.
Right.
But anyway, my understanding is yes, as a sole proprietor, as an individual business owner, as a recipient of 1099s, that all 3, the 2 that he pays with 1099 and himself that gets paid with a 1099, all 3 of those would be eligible. Ms. Hester, is that your understanding?
Yes, sir. So he would, like you mentioned earlier, you would use more of a P&L or tax return situation so that you could calculate his average monthly income versus having a payroll information.
And I'm also being reminded that our webpage will have a link to the Texas unemployment part of their unemployment office.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you look on our website, there's a link there. But he should be eligible, as well as the 2 workers that he has.
Okay. I mean, it's not a big business, but filling out the forms, I was trying to help him do that, and we just weren't sure, you know, does he put an independent contractor? Does he put self-employed? I mean, it's a company. It's not, we don't have it in the LLC or anything, but, you know,
well,
we just weren't sure how to file it. And
he'll calculate that income based on his 1099. That would be my understanding, and the bank would probably give you a little bit of guidance on that as well. It's really not that hard. I think we've tried to make it as easy as we can, but they're being overwhelmed. I mean, the number of calls and applications that banks and institutions are getting is just unbelievable.
Right. Well, I tried several banks, and all of them said they're not even accepting any more applications unless you're already a previous customer of theirs. So that's who we fall into also is this something you apply online and then you give your banking information to a bank, or do you have to contact the bank that is accepting this program?
Well, help us with that, Ms. Hester. What's been the experience there?
So I have heard from some banks who are only accepting applications from their existing customers, but there are also others who would accept applications from non-customers or deposit customers. The reason behind that would be the level of resources, like you mentioned, that they have available to process those applications. I mean, we've got small community banks with hundreds and hundreds of applications. And so there is a link on the SBA website that helps you find a lender, and I would suggest using that to find a lender close to you.
Okay. I will do that. All right. I appreciate it. Thank you for your time.
Well, thank you, Ms. Garcia, and thanks again, Christy and Jason. Back to you.
Sure. We have actually Gina Spagnola with the Galveston Chamber is on. We're going to bring Gina live. Go ahead, Gina.
Hello, Congressman. How are you?
Well, hello, Ms. Spagnola. I'm doing super. We sure appreciate you and all the stuff you do for our great district.
Well, thank you. And on behalf of all of our Galveston County Chambers of Commerce, thank you so much for accepting our invitation to do this on behalf of our members in your district, which is the best in the nation. Actually, my friend Cress Doyle asked a question that our member had asked, so I just wanted to use this time to thank you, and then just to remind you that we, Chambers of Commerce, need your help. 501c6s were left off and are receiving no funding, no opportunities, and so we've got 4,000 Chambers of Commerce across this nation that do good things. And, you know, I mentioned to someone yesterday, we're the Red Cross for businesses. And it's important that, you know, we are able to continue our work. This chamber's 175 years old. But on behalf of all of our chambers, we thank you for working on our behalf every day, everything that you and Brenda do in representing us and our members. So, but Chris had asked a question that our member had asked earlier.
Right. Well, thank you for that, Gina. And you failed to mention that not only is it it's the oldest community, oldest Chamber of Commerce in Texas. So
that's right.
You know,
we want to be around another 175. So we need some help.
So we've got a great track record. And just for your information, as I've been on some of those conference calls that I talked about, I've pushed that up to the Republican leadership. Kevin Brady is the ranking member on Ways and Means. And we're saying, look, chambers ought to be included in that. And so they're going to go back and try to look at it. And, of course, as I said on a previous caller, they've been changing the rules. It's been miraculous how quickly the Treasury Department worked, SBA has worked, White House has worked, and quite frankly, Congress has worked together for a change. But there are some tweaks that we need to make, and that certainly is one of them. We're working on that.
Thank you. Thank you so much for all you do.
No, thank you. Chris, back to you, Jason.
It's Derek, and if I say this right, Derek Sarko in Lee City. Go ahead.
Hello, good afternoon, Congressman Philip, Sushil, and Christy. I appreciate you guys taking this on and answering our questions. It's a great venue and platform for us to get all these questions answered. So I do appreciate it. My question is, sorry.
Go ahead.
My question is, we're a small engineering firm in the oil and gas industry, and our corporate office is in Canada that employ 29 people, but our office branch is here in League City. We have 10 employees, local employees, engineers in this area. Is our U.S. branch eligible for this program?
Well, I'm going to defer to Sushil Kumar for that. Mr. Kumar, what say you?
My understanding is that yes, they are.
And I guess the question is it Zaharko? Derek, is that how you pronounce your last name?
Zaharko that's right.
Yeah. So my question to you, Mr. Zaharko, is I suspect that they, of course, they file here in Texas, obviously. It doesn't matter where the ownership is, where the checks come out of. But they are obviously Texas residents, most importantly, Galveston County residents, which we love, and oil and gas engineering, which we love. And we're watching that, too, by the way, on another venue with what's happening with oil. And we've had that conversation today with the whole Texas delegation. That's another story. But my understanding would be yes, like Mr. Kumar said, absolutely. They live here, they get their checks here, and they should qualify.
Okay, and I can confirm that they're... Okay. Go ahead.
No, please go ahead, Chris. Please go ahead.
I think it was it you, Mr. Kumar, you had a question? Or was it Ms. Hester?
I was going to chime in, and while the Q&A was going on, I was on the website about the independent contractors, and some of the language that I'm seeing out of Treasury talks about independent contractors count as employees for purposes of PPP loan calculations. No. But can they apply for PPP? Yes. So, that's where the interim final rule, which is an oxymoron in itself, comes into play. So I'll send you the links on the website, because the initial question from the very get-go had to do whether or not the person could apply. Answer is yes. Can they count the cost towards, as the payor? Can they count it towards it? No. So it really depends on what the person is ultimately trying to do. So I wanted to address that part real quickly out there, because I've been researching it heavily, and I'll get to the bottom of it while we're done. Appreciate your time.
No, that's perfect. We appreciate that. And so we're glad to have you, a small engineering firm, Mr. Harko in League City, because oil industry for us here in Texas, as you know, is huge. And so I hope that helps you, and I hope you feel encouraged by that.
Yes, no, it's we're getting hit pretty hard, obviously, with the price of oil right now, and the fact that the producers are slashing budgets left, right, and center. So yeah, and this program definitely looks like it will fit nicely with us.
Just so you know, since you're in that industry, we've had this discussion, the Texas delegation, almost yesterday and today, on and off, that we would love to see the federal government, the state maybe, suspend their oil royalties coming from the drilling, trying to do everything we can to keep that industry afloat. As you're probably well aware, Russia and the Saudis are in a price war, and they would like nothing better than to drive our industry, pun intended, into the ground. And so we think the president needs to act. He's supposed to meet with all executives, you may be aware of this, tomorrow in the White House and discuss that. So stay tuned, because we're hoping help is on the horizon.
That's great.
Thank you for that call. Jason, I'm going to kick it back to you.
Okay. Our next caller is Christy Villalobos from Alvin. Christy, you on?
Yes, I'm here. I appreciate the opportunity for us to chime in on these questions. The question I had is, we have a concern about the forgiveness on the loan, whether or not it's all or nothing. How much is forgivable after the 8-week period is over?
Well, thanks for being on the line with us, Ms. Christie. My understanding is that as long as you're, are you a business? Are you an owner of a business? Okay.
Yes.
My understanding, and again, these rules have changed somewhat. It's been a very fluid situation the last week or two. is that as long as you're using that money for certain things, of course, wages is one, mortgage was one, and I'd have to go back to the list. I've got 35 pages. Mr. Kumar, do you remember that exact list, or Ms. Hester, do you remember that exact list? There's 4 or 5 things that if they use that, keep their employees, that it's forgivable.
Okay,
so payroll specifically.
Right.
Payroll specifically, utilities, rent, and interest on your mortgage expense. And 75% was a number that I understood was the appropriate percentage that was up to forgivable.
Yeah, that's what I was Ms. Hester.
It's of those forgivable costs that you mentioned, 75% of those has to be made up of the salary cost, and the other 25% can be made up of the utilities, mortgage interest, and the other items you mentioned. But 75% of that cost has to be associated with salary.
Okay, I understand that, but and this is Will Hawkins still with Christy. So, say for example, if we had 50 employees as of post February 15th, when 8 weeks is up, are we required to still have 50 employees? And if we asked for, say, $20,000 and we paid them out $15,000, would we be eligible for $15,000 of forgiveness, or do we have to get to $20,000 in expenses, or nothing is forgiven?
So the way the interim final rule reads is that if your salary costs decrease, or if your number of employees decreases, then your forgiveness amount would be reduced by those reductions.
Okay, so it's not all or nothing.
That's right.
Right, and Will, I do want to note what Christy did say, Christy Hester, that is, and that is that, the interim final rule. So that's what we understand to be final. We're hoping it doesn't change, and she's hit the nail right on the head. So hopefully that'll be a source of encouragement to you.
Yes, sir. No, we appreciate the time clarifying.
Oh, you bet. Thank you, Will.
Thank you.
Jason, back to you.
Okay, we're going to take our next caller, and we have on the line TJ Olds with I-45 now. TJ, you on?
I'm here.
Go ahead, sir.
Well,
hopefully y'all can hear me okay. Congressman, how are you today?
I'm doing just fine. How about you?
I'm excellent. Wanted to ask, and one of the things we've heard a lot from folks that on the EIDL program that applied, because it was kind of the first one out of the batch. A lot of folks, particularly folks that would fall into that independent contractor, hairdressers and the like, who filled out the form, then it changed to, hey, do you want the $10,000 forgiven? So told to fill out again, and they were given a tracking number, but there's not been a response. What's being done to address getting more of kind of a response so it can be tracked or the like? Because obviously those folks are pretty, nervous right now. They're not hearing anything back. It's not like dealing with a bank where you have a loan officer kind of talking to you. And then the other was, as you had mentioned on the PPP program, that there were other areas outside of what Gina had talked about with the chambers that you felt needed to be addressed. And I was wondering what you see as the top priority of addressing those areas. And those are my questions, sir.
Well, thank you, TJ. I'm going to, Mr. Kumar, jump over to you on the economic injury and disaster loans, what he's calling EIDL, for those of you who may not be familiar with that acronym. What has been your experience with those?
Thanks, TJ. The program rolled out for Texas right around March 20th in the evening at about 5 o'clock or so. So anytime we're looking at responses to timelines, my timeline that I'm sharing with people is start to finish, 2 to 3 weeks for analysis, and 5 days for funding. So given the fact that that timeline has not been made yet, the sheer volume of applications coming in precludes itself from offering a status report on the moment. But here's what business owners can do. Call our 1-800-659-2955. there is a lengthy hold. Put the call on mute, carry about your business, and people have been able to get through to customer service and get the answers that they're seeking. Number one. Number two, March 30th was a Monday. That's when the streamlined application process rolled out, and people could take advantage of applying for an advance to relieve payroll pressures on their employees, and they could ask for an advance and get that anywhere between 3 to 5, 5 to 7 business days after they hit the submit button. So there are ways for the business owner, the private nonprofit, for the aquaculture enterprises, and all the myriad entities that can apply for an economic injury, which covers the entire gamut of your working capital needs for funding purposes. Was there a second component to your question, TJ, that addressed IO, or was that it?
Yeah, and since you had mentioned that, just to kind of, because I think there's that 10,000 up to 10,000. I think is actually how the terminology is correct. It's up to 10,000. That's correct, sir. That's exact up to $10,000. Correct, sir. Right, and then, but that was kind of the shorter time frame. Hey, let's do this as a stopgap, and then I don't think a lot of folks had understood the review process was going to take a couple of weeks, and then the funding kind of speeds through. So if someone has not heard back on that up to 10,000 yet, that doesn't mean they're not being considered or it's not being reviewed on the other end. They're just not hearing that response. And when they call that number, I just want to clarify with you, when they call that number, are they able to ask specific based on that action number that they got, or is it just more of a generic question and answer?
You can ask very specific questions. The reference number is your signature stamp from the SBA. I'm using the word signature stamp, but it's your authoritative statement that we have received your app and we're working on it. I mean, as the Congressman said early on, to roll out an economic package during these unparalleled, unprecedented times, and to have everything work flawlessly, which it's not, is clearly a mission in excellence given the circumstances. There are glitches at long haul times. We regret that piece, but at the same time, we want to be very honest and straightforward in stating to the public, we are working diligently. There is a phone number you can call. Regret the fact that it's taken so long, but the answers will be forthcoming. Liquidity is forthcoming. There have been nationwide fundings, if you will, from different parts of the state, and money will be flowing. So we appreciate your patience.
Yeah, and that's probably the most concise answer I've heard from anyone. So I appreciate you saying that. I think that gives some folks maybe some peace of mind. It's that not knowing part. I hope you understand that. I think there are a lot of folks in the public that hear they don't hear that part, and that not knowing part kind of gets them concerned.
DJ, I will tell you that in my banking expertise in 27 years prior to my 8 years here, it's a total of 35 years, I have never once encountered, I don't think anyone else is on this call has ever experienced this type of health crisis becoming an economic crisis, and I certainly hope we don't see any. And it pains me to know that people are out there in economic distress and health distress. So we'll do our part to address the concerns of the many on the business side, and I'll have the healthcare experts talk about what is it that they see so that there's some sort of relief coming down the pike. Congressman, would you surmise that to be the case too?
Oh, absolutely. And TJ, to your second question, we're talking about, as I mentioned earlier, oil industry needs some specific action because of what's happening on the energy front. Rural hospitals are in drastic need for a lot of help because a lot of their customers who used to come in to get procedures done don't. They don't not only have the money, they no longer have the income coming in, they don't have the supplies. And so rural hospitals and the chambers that Gina Spagnola very graciously pointed out, there's others, but those are just a few of the ones we're saying, look, our veterans are included in a certain part of this as well. There's others that we're saying, look, they need specific help. You're seeing this with, you're seeing new rules rolled out when we talked to CMS today about the nursing homes. There's new rules rolling out because of the rampant viruses that have attacked some of these nursing homes. So those are just a few of the ones that we're interested in making sure they get taken care of. Thanks for the question.
Great. Thank you.
Jay.
Sure. Thank you,
Jason,
Congressman.
You bet. Jason, back to you.
Yeah, thank you, Congressman. And before we take on our next caller, there was, I think Mr. Kumar had mentioned this, and I thought it would be an appropriate time to bring it up, maybe ask the question of Dr. Kaiser, who is on the line with Galveston County Local Health Authority, if he could give us, because I know a lot of our folks on the phone right now have a lot of questions about small business lending and the PPP, but maybe just give us a quick update on where things stand with the coronavirus in the county and in and around the area. Also, maybe if he might be able to give us, our business owners here, a little update on some things they can be doing to possibly protect their employees.
Yeah. Hi, this is Philip Kaiser. Basically, we still can see the numbers rising, and we expect the numbers to continue to go up probably until the end of April or early May. There are a lot of models out there that say that's when we're going to have our peak. Everybody needs to keep in mind that peak doesn't mean over. Peak means the height, and then we'll start seeing things falling off. The good news in the number of rising cases is that it's not rising as fast as we had expected several weeks ago, and we think that the stay-home things are working, and we're very pleased at that. And so today I think everybody's cautiously optimistic, but it's still too early to say that we know what's going to happen because we've had good days and bad days in the past. We continue to actively address the situation in nursing homes. We've been partnering with UTMB and the local nursing homes and the local nursing home association, and have been providing PPE and testing. That means personal protective equipment and testing for the nursing homes where they are affected by COVID, and we're starting to develop, I think, really good working relationships there. So again, we're cautiously optimistic with that. But I would caution everybody, as the Surgeon General said, these next 2 weeks are going to be tough. We've already had some deaths in the county, and I wouldn't be surprised if we have some more. And I wouldn't be surprised if we have some days when our count jumps up fairly dramatically. But we're going to keep a very close eye on that. What can people do to protect themselves and protect their employees? Well, going back to the basics again, staying home unless you have to be out. Making sure that you're doing good hand washing. If you have hand sanitizer, great. If you just have soap and water, that works just as well if people will wash their hands carefully. We're also recommending, along with the CDC, that if people are out and about, that they wear a mask. Now, the kinds of masks that people would wear when they're out and about are not going to protect you from getting infected, but they're going to protect other people from getting infected by you. So let's just say, for example, I had an asymptomatic infection. If I'm wearing a mask, then it's much more likely I'm going to spread it to anyone else. And just remember that these don't have to be medical grade masks. They can even be homemade, and there are lots of instructions online how to do it. And even a scarf or a bandana will work. And I'll stop at that. And thank you for this opportunity, Congressman, to speak.
No, that's great, Dr. Kaiser. I'm glad you brought that up. It was a good question Jason pointed to, because one of the conference calls we were on today was with Vice President Mike Pence and Seema Verma, who would recognize as the administrator for the CMS. And one of the things she said was that they're issuing new guidelines to some of these facilities, whether they're assisted living or nursing homes, because it's so hard, for people not to go see their loved one, and for people who have been there for a while not to have visitors come in. Yeah. They're actually issuing iPads to them so they can try to keep that line of communication open. And so good things are happening along those lines. When you talk to people, tell them be encouraged, because you're aware of the one facility, I'm sure, in Texas City, where we had issues. And so all of that is being watched very carefully by the administration, obviously CMS, by you, by others. And so changes are being made. And I think that, as you said, we're going to be on the downside of this. It's not rising as quickly as we thought it was going to be. That's a good thing. And so I think we can all take encouragement from that. Thank you, Doctor, for your input.
Yes, sir. No, the other thing I would say, Congressman, is you keep trying to encourage people, and we would encourage those of you who have loved ones in nursing homes, please encourage the staff. I mean, we have them calling us up in tears, and they need our support as much as everyone else. So we would just, encourage everyone to have a positive attitude.
Well, very good point. And, of course, that goes for all of our medical teams in the area. Think about how many of them started without any protection, our first responders. And so that's a very, very good point. Keep encouraging them, check in on them, and we're going to get through this. And I'm just so encouraged by the response that your government has come out with. It's been nothing short of miraculous, in my opinion, being intimately involved in it. So I appreciate your input there, Doctor. Jason, let me kick it back to you.
You got it. Our next caller is Anderson Robert, or Robert, represents Connors Greens with a question. Go ahead, Anderson.
Hi, guys. Thank you very much for holding this call. Through listening to the answers and some of the questions that people are posing, I do sense that there's a legitimate level of confusion in this 1099 issue. As an employer, I pay people both as employees with deductions to the state and the federal government, but I also pay workers or contractors on a 1099 basis. In my world, both of those numbers comprise payroll. Now, if you're going to put the 1099 people in a bucket that says they have to apply for their own, to be honest with you, a lot of these people don't even have bank accounts, let alone a credit record to get a bank account, okay? Unfortunately, that's the circumstances they're in life. Also, that extra 0.5%, I believe, is the amount of money that would be left over for the employer to make his utility and his rent or his interest payments. So if I'm not allowed to calculate all of the numbers, the 1099 and the salaries as an amount to get the loan basis of for the PPP program, it definitely leaves me in a deficit for the amounts for the interest and utilities and stuff like that.
You bring a great point up, Anderson, and I'm going to go to Mr. Kumar in just a minute, and maybe to Ms. Hester as well. Some of the reading I did and some of the updates talked about people that had to go into banks that didn't necessarily have all their records. I'd have to go back and review those 35 plus pages I went through. But Mr. Kumar, I understand that he would like to be able to do this on behalf of his 1099 recipients. What's your thoughts on that process?
My understanding, Congressman, and I keep trying to refine my understanding here, is that he is employing independent contractors. His contributions to the independent contractor cannot be used as a basis for payroll costs. So they have to apply on their own. So he's not the beneficiary, perhaps, for what he has paid out. They've got to collect on their own. Whereas when he calculates his own payroll costs, he has to leave that out, is my understanding. What the framers had in mind, I don't know what the intent is. From my understanding, it's parsed the way I just represented it. So in other words, the independent contractor, the 1099 gig economy folks, apply on their own to collect PPP funds from the banks and apply with the SBA for the idle funds under radio button number 2 on our website. That's my understanding. Christy?
I would agree with that understanding, and I obviously I wasn't there when the bill was crafted, but it's my understanding that the idea is to prop up those businesses so that they can continue to make this payroll. In a lot of situations, those folks aren't working, but yet they wanted to continue the payroll so that those individuals, would have still have their salaries. And so if it's a 1099, that's not a true employee who you're paying benefits and other things besides wages. And so in that vein, those people would apply on their own as a basically self-employed person. Now, as the business owner, you would be eligible to claim on there's two parts of it. You've got to calculate the payroll and the loan amount. So in theory, you want to get a loan for the amount that's going to be forgiven. So if over the next 8 weeks, you're not going to be paying that 1099 income out to those independent contractors, you wouldn't want to use that in your calculation for your loan amount anyway, because on the back side, on the forgiveness side, that amount would be reduced by those folks that you're not paying payroll anyway. So I hope that makes sense. The idea is that your payroll is going to be calculated in the same way that your forgiveness would be calculated for most, I hope. I mean, I guess there are some that could be looking to have some an actual loan left over after the forgiveness portion of it, but it's very clear. It's one of the most clear things in the interim final rule is that you cannot double count those 1099 wages that are paid to individuals. They have to file for the PPP loan on their own.
Yeah, and I finally found the page reading here, Anderson. That's exactly right. I'm on page 11, which don't mean anything to you, but it says starting April 3rd, 2020, small businesses and sole proprietorships can apply for and receive loans to cover their payroll and other certain expenses through existing SBA lenders. Starting April 10th, 2020, independent contractors and self-employed individuals can apply for and receive loans to cover their payroll and other certain expenses. So I think Ms. Hester's right. It's not exactly what you want to hear, because I realize you've got people that maybe work for you that don't maintain a bank account, and they don't have the wherewithal to have all their paperwork at hand, which makes it a bit difficult. But that is the way the rule is set up, so that they have to apply on their own.
Yeah, can you guys still hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay. So, yeah, that's definitely not what I or my people wanted to hear.
Right.
So, anyway, the truth is the truth, as much as it hurts.
Right.
The other thing I wanted to bring up, again, with the EIDL, I've received a note that my application was received on March 23rd. Haven't heard a word since. But I understand it's taken 2 to 3 weeks to process those through this call, so I'll patiently await the update there. I had a question regarding property taxes. Effectively, when the restaurants were closed, my business grows specialty produce for high-end restaurants in the Houston area. And when the restaurants were closed, our revenue went to zero. And, therefore, we're unable to generate anything through these periods of time, and it's pretty troubling. Is there going to be any property tax breaks, or, are we just going to look forward to chunking that extra $1,000 a month we pay in property taxes into some amount owing at the end of the year?
Now, is your first name Anderson, or is it Robert?
It's Robert Anderson.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
I've not heard any talk, Robert, about property tax relief. Of course, as you well know, and I grew up on the north side of Pearland, just north of Roche and the early ways. Boy, hadn't Pearland grown. But as you well know, school tax, property tax, city tax, you're going to have some mud tax if you live in mud. You're going to have some drainage districts taxes, maybe some fire districts. Most of that's going to come through a state entity. And so I've not heard any discussion up here about dealing with property taxes. Again, I know that's not what you want to hear, but that's what it is.
Yeah, well, that may be something to put on the table for future discussion. Now, I did have one last question, and then I'll be quiet for a while. Okay.
Okay.
When and this probably goes to our health expert on the line. What do you think the reopening looks like for the restaurants in the Texas or in the country even? Because, I get the gut feel that if you had an occupancy rate of maybe 200, you may have that occupancy rate temporarily reduced to 100, so you could operate at 50% capacity and perhaps keep the transmission of any lingering virus down. If that's the case, I know a lot of our customers won't be able to survive on 50% revenue or 50% capacity. The restaurant industry doesn't have those kinds of margins. Is there any consideration to extending the PPP program past the 8 weeks?
Well, let me answer that for you real quick. And listen, thank you for the call. And if you don't mind, if you'll hang up, you can listen to my answer on the line. We've heard no discussion about what will happen with the restaurants going forward. Quite frankly, all of our discussion has been about business in general. That is to say that we want to get it open as quickly as possible. You did hear Dr. Kaiser say that the numbers were still rising, but they're not as fast as we thought they would be. And there's a lot of modeling out there, and I've been involved in more of these town halls and modeling conference calls, I think, than I ever thought I would be. And so I think you're seeing some projections. At one point, the president said maybe by Easter, but they're watching state by state. Actually, we were on, as I said earlier, with CMS today, Seema Verma, who is the administrator for the CMS, and she said they're watching county by county. And of course, Louisiana's having a tough time. And so they're modeling all this and watching all this and wanting to open all of this up as quickly as they can, but I just can't give you a data. I wish I could, so I can't give you a number, percentage for what their customers might be. But thank you for those questions, Mr. Anderson. We appreciate it. Jason, back to you.
You bet. And just a reminder to everyone, we are going to try to get to every question in the time that we have, but there is a likelihood that we don't get to every question. If you did press *3 on your phone and give your question to one of our screeners, we will give that question to the Congressman's staff for follow-up. So I just want to let everyone know that if it doesn't get answered on this call, we will make every effort to answer it later on. With that, we're going to go to Steve Gundling in Friendswood. Steve, are you on?
I'm on the line. Can you hear me?
Go ahead, sir. Yes, sir.
I want to echo what everybody else has said. We appreciate you taking your time to visit with us this afternoon. But my wife and I have we're an ultimate small business. It's just the two of us. We do a little contract work, but we have 5 vacation rentals in Galveston. We're both retired. We live off of Social Security and our vacation rentals. And, of course, they've been shut down right in the middle of spring break. So we're losing $10,000 a month in income, and we're still having to put out mortgages and utilities and things. So we're $18,000 to $20,000 upside down each month. No payroll, except what we drive, to live off of. But does this act affect us? Do we have anything to look forward out of this at all?
Well, thank you for being online with us, Mr. Gundling, and I'm going to jump over to Mr. Kumar. I think what he's saying is that the EIDL program, or do you think PPP on this situation?
EIDL all the way, sir, because he is suffering the classic textbook definition of a revenue destruction, revenue shortfall to pay his ongoing expenses. So please, are you a Schedule E, sir, or are you a LLC, or what's your entity that you have formed for these 5 different?
We're an LLC, but we file sole proprietorship tax-wise.
So you're Schedule E, in other words.
Yeah.
Okay. So please do file. That's exactly the definition for economic injury, and I certainly hope that the funds that are being missed out we can take care of, because that's exactly what we're there for.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Kumar.
What program is that?
This is the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program, and the website is covid19relief.sba.gov.
Okay, now I did fill out something on that, but I never got anything. I did like a week ago, when it first became available, but I never got anything back with any kind of a file number or anything.
When you submitted, hit the submit button, there would have been a pop-up of some sort that said, "We've received your application," a reference number, an application number. That is your affirmation that we have gotten your application for the sums of money you sought, and that you're in the queue, if you will.
Okay, I'll go back and look at my email, see what I got.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Gunling.
Appreciate it, and bear with us.
Hey, before you go, Mr. Gunling, Ms. Hester, are you still with us? Are you experiencing any of these in terms of people coming into the banks? Are you hearing about it?
I would, from the bankers across the state that we have visited with, I would say about 1/3 of them have borrowers applying for PPP who have also applied for the EIDL loans as well, because the questions are coming up about how those two work together. So I would say about 1/3 of the folks applying for PPP have also applied for those.
Well, good. I was curious about that. Thank you for that. I appreciate that. Jason, I'm going to kick it back to you.
You got it. Our next caller is Debbie Arnold, who's calling from Nederland. Debbie, you on? Hello, Debbie.
Yes, I'm sorry, I'm on.
Okay, go ahead with your question.
My question is, are there any other, I think my question was just answered about the EIDL. It was what other resources would be available to sole proprietors who have payroll but don't take a paycheck. Their pay actually comes off their P&Ls. So it looks to me like the EIDL loan is what would apply to those individuals.
You agree with
Just
that?
to add to that, yes, sir. 3.75 interest rate fixed for maximum amortization 30-year time frame. Your first payment is due 12 months from now. A maximum of $2 million if you qualify. Up to $500,000, no real estate collateral. And if you've already applied for it, just bear with us while we work through our pipeline. If you've not applied for us, COVID-19relief.sba.gov.
I have a follow-up question.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, of course.
Is $10,000 the maximum forgiveness in that situation?
The way the question is phrased is a bit misleading, so perhaps let me enhance it. The number is up to $10,000 as an advance on. So, for example, let's say you apply for $50,000 and you're approved for $50,000. The $10,000 is an advance that you received against potential loan proceeds. If for some reason you were turned down, that advance now becomes a grant and doesn't have to be repaid. The mathematics of it works out to be $1,000 per employee. So not everyone qualifies, and not everyone gets the maximum depending on your side of the equation. So if you're a sole prop, you get $1,000. If you have 13 employees, you're capped out at $10,000.
Does that help you, Ms. Debbie?
Yes, it does. Thank you so much.
You bet. Thank you. Jason?
Thank you.
Okay, next caller is Tucker from Friendswood, Texas. Tucker, you on the line?
Hey, Randy, thanks for having me on the call.
You bet.
If you could have one of your staff people call me, I've been trying for a while to get through, and I think I can help. I'd like to volunteer my services.
Okay.
The question I had was, I'm a self-employed, and I've been told multiple dates on when we can actually do it. And I thought I heard you reading that the self-employed could apply. Did you say April 23rd?
I think that's the date. Is that your understanding, Mr. Kumar?
You know, what are you applying for? PPP, or are you applying for the economic injury?
The PPE.
I don't have visibility, sir, yet, because I'm literally living day by day. I don't have that visibility, but let me get the number
It's on
for
Friday.
you and get back to you. It is Friday, right? That would be
Friday.
Yeah, I've heard multiple dates.
Okay,
Friday was one of them.
I think that's
Friday.
right.
So that would be the sole props and the contractors, correct?
Yep.
Right. Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you, Doug.
Thank you.
Congressman, and to our team, I wanted to let everyone know, unfortunately, that is our time limit for today. It's been a productive call. I want to thank everyone for taking this opportunity to jump on, particularly our guests who I know have busy schedules. Congressman, I'm going to let you go ahead and close us out. And again, thanks, everyone.
Well, thank you, Jason, and I appreciate all of our staff. It's been all of our screeners that have worked with us. And I want to say to our great constituents who've been on the call, your staff has been working hard. They are working from home. We had a program to take computers home and keep your congressional office working on your behalf. And so kudos to my staff because they have been absolutely stalwarts in fighting this battle. Our town hall is coming to an end. I do want to say thank you to all who got online with us tonight. We appreciate that. We appreciate all y'all are doing for your American country, for our great state of Texas, and for our great district. Again, if you're unable to ask a question or comment tonight, please feel free to visit my website, weber.house.gov, and sign up for our e-newsletter with up-to-date information on the COVID-19 response. Again, hats off to Ms. Hester, Mr. Kumar, and Dr. Kaiser. Appreciate you three experts coming online and helping us. And I just want to say, folks, your government is hard at work. We're going to get through this. Texas is a great state. Galveston County is a great county. Jefferson County is a great county. Brazoria County is a great county. We've got the greatest district in the country, as Gina Spagnola said. And so thank you for all that participated. Keep loving on one another. Keep helping one another. We're going to get through this. Thanks, folks, and good night.